For 2 long years, Genshin standard banners did not receive any changes. From 2020 to most of 2022, you were stuck between these 5 characters. But everything changed with the inclusion of Sumeru. Now that grass was added into the game, what better way to show off its power than by bringing in a new 5-star character that everyone has a chance to get, whether they wanted him or not. For our next character in this series, we are going to be taking a look at the wimpy kid we all know and love, Tighnari. Here are the rules. We can only use Tighnari, and all bows are allowed, but not including 5 stars. Yeah, I pulled a little bit of reverse psychology here to see if it would get us a 5-star bow. It didn't. Now let's see if we can beat Genshin Impact only using Tighnari. We start our journey with Yaoi. Yeah! Okay, so that line was partially a joke. Normally at this point in the video, we play the critically acclaimed game, Guess Which Archon I Tried to Get but lost 50-50 on, so it became a standard banner account. But this time around, I didn't pull an Archon. I pulled during Sino banner. I guess I just knew that deep down inside, I was destined to lose 50-50 on this banner. You can't have one without the other. You and I were just meant to be. Our challenge properly begins at Amber's domain, which would serve as the judge for this case between parents trying to take custody of a child. Tighnari refused to let Amber shine in this, so he did his best to perform this skip, even if he fumbled and had to restart the domain. But who cares about that when you have the easiest solution to any problem: a grenade. Following the explosion, we are given a new 4-star weapon to add to our arsenal. And it's not Shinobu.
Get off the stage, ma'am!
The Sharpshooter's Oath, my beloved. The 3-star weapon that I consider an honorary 4-star, but we'll talk more about that later. Because now, we have a couple loose threads to take care of in Mondstadt. One tried to take our kid, and another one tried to take our best friend. So how do we settle this? By also fumbling the skip like 8 times. Lastly is Kaya, but he's cool. He hasn't done anything to us except add a little bit of foreshadowing. Okay, this is not scripted. I just remembered in the manga that like he tried to attack Holly, I think. 30 minutes into this run, and we finished Act 1, so this single mother's gotta work her way up in this world. And while we work, let's talk about my initial thoughts on Tighnari. Going into this challenge, I had high expectations because he's my favorite standard banner 5-star. There's your Chris fact for the day. I pulled on his only banner run. He has some of my favorite voice lines in the game.
Why is there a chest here? Who do you think you are?
Who do you think you are? I especially like his line when he gets hit. I'll bury you! I have him leveled and geared, and he's voiced by Zachary Gordon, aka Greg Heffley, aka the wimpy kid from the series Diary of a Wimpy Kid that I have the entire collection of. These are my Infinity Stones. So how is Tighnari in this environment? What does he excel with, and where does he fall short? We'll start with his strengths. Tighnari is a 1v1 machine. Do not peek this guy. He does so much damage to single targets with his charge attacks and bursts. He doesn't get a singular ginormous damage number, but rather a pretty okay one and a lot of small hits. Because for most of his attacks, he gets extra vines that come out. And since he's a bow character and can aim, we can also get guaranteed crits on weak points that also deal more damage because of the Sharpshooter's Oath, my goat. And while we're still on the bow, in addition to being able to do specific activities, Tighnari also has special charge attacks. Level 1 shots are just poopy dog physical ones. Level 2 is a Dendro shot, and level 3 is where we get the vines. The level 3 charge is what makes this character. Our attacks have extra branches that come out, which is very useful against shield enemies, for example, because it attacks them from multiple angles, and they have no way to defend it. Plus, you don't even have to aim at the enemy for these branches to hit them. You can aim at the ground and they'll just come out and attack. These vines allow for Tighnari to have a ton of Dendro damage coming out consistently, and his abilities are also pretty solid. Tighnari's skill is the flashbang, the concussion, the Zaza.
Don't like me, but I don't care about
This ability distracts enemies in a circle, and it actually fucking works. How do you power creep a status effect like this? The skill itself doesn't do much damage, but to make up for that, Tighnari gets an instant level 3 on his charge shots, and these combos basically just one-shot enemies at this point. As for the burst, it's basically our level 3 shot, but with even more vines. Plus, he also does this spin at the beginning, like, okay, dude, was that necessary? Wow, his strengths are basically his entire kit. So, what's bad about this character? It's what's inside that counts. If you paid attention to the subtle suggestions that I made about his damage, you may have noticed that I mentioned he does really well in 1v1s, which is true, but the second more than like 2 enemies show up, his damage falls off hard. So these branches that Tighnari shoot out are cool, and they can be helpful, but they don't always chase the same target. The branches individually don't do much damage at this point, but when they're added together, they basically act like we've shot 2 charge shots at someone. But when there's multiple enemies, it chooses to not focus all of the damage into one of them, but instead put that like 70 damage onto something else. And these little branches do not do much damage. One could even call them wimpy. This can be really annoying, and it also sucks when you're attacking inside, because if the roof is too low, the branches will just hit that instead, so you get nothing. Another problem with Tighnari is Dendro. He has good Dendro application when he's on the field, but Dendro sucks by itself. It's like throwing a snowball at someone versus throwing multiple of them. Yeah, throwing multiple at them will do a lot more damage, but it's still a fucking snowball. Now put a rock in one of them and we might start getting somewhere. Dendro is only good against Hydro Abyss shields and Electro ones. That's it. It is borderline useless to everything else. So Tighnari just force feeds grass into their mouths until they eventually fall over. Nah, I think I'd kill myself. With Tighnari forcing everyone into accepting his trees.
Because I'm vegan. You don't appreciate the animals, pal.
We were ready to begin the second act of Mondstadt, but we didn't really have the best circumstances surrounding us. For one, we did a 10 pull and got quite possibly one of the worst weapons for Tighnari. You've seen the damage these vines do. We'd probably start healing them if we had this rust. The other issue was ascending Tighnari. We used the crack to make green minerals, but we still can't ascend because of the lotus flowers. Now, I will admit, this one was more in my control, but be honest with me, would you have done the same? Our first obstacle in Act 2 was the Eye of the Storm. Bro stood no chance, if I'm being honest. He did not move. He got up, then went straight down, like an old man trying to get out of bed. After projecting my own morning routine, we enter the Fatui hideout and encounter Agent Zamenhof.
Zamenhof.
I'm trying, man. Earlier, I mentioned that Tighnari excels in 1v1s. This was not one of them. The agent here spawns right next to the metal cage, which just so happens to be placed perfectly so that our vines can't attack him, meaning that our Tighnari here is basically getting exposed. Wouldn't be the first time that's happened. Pull up the fucking replay on that door. What the? Before entering Act 2, we hospitalize the Ruin Guard and encounter our first Pyro Shield. So for these, I use the surrounding water because, let's be real, if you see a fire, are you going to try and snuff it out with a leaf when there's a clear bucket of water beside you? No. Act 2 concludes with the Cryo Abyss Mage assuming control of Dvalin, but luckily Act 3 does not make us fight him, because in place of him stands a Hydro Abyss Mage. This is where it gets fun.
We bring the boom! That's what we do! We bring the boom!
Once we made it to Dvalin, I started to think that maybe I was just misremembering Tighnari's damage when I was writing the script, because this boss took 3 attempts to take down. This could easily be because Tighnari still hasn't been ascended yet, but that doesn't fit my agenda for right now. Oh man, would you look at that? There's an owl. Woo! Tighnari finished Mondstadt at the 5-hour point, which is actually really good. I think he's got the shortest time for any character that is not a literal god. Getting ready for Leeway is when I finally decided to pull my pants up, grit my teeth, and sit down at my gamer chair to walk all the way over to Sumeru. This journey included spikes appearing from thin air and Tighnari losing all traction on his feet. Once we went through the Cave of Wonder, we thankfully didn't have to go too far to obtain our Nilot Palilotuses. This ascension gave us a new passive that is basically there to set up the next one, so it's just kind of fine right now. Nothing crazy. Afterwards, Greg prays to the Lord to bring us to China, and for some reason, Venti obliges. Okay. Leeway Act 1 starts us out at Mooncarver's fighting ring. Given that we have unlimited bursts here, we were just able to constantly spam vines at our enemies. And since we're spamming bursts, I now know for a fact that Tighnari can hear everything.
I hear everything.
And that makes one of us because now I can't hear anything else.
I hear everything.
Am I dead yet?
Next, we had to go over to Mountain Shaper to break some amber. Why must I be forsaken into doing this? Look at this. We're making a hardworking single mother go through a fraction of the pain that a billionaire has to go through. This is unbelievable.
Rex Lapis, Rite of Dissension? Nay.
Next, we had Cloud Retainer's Domain, and if you ever wondered what animal Tighnari was based off of, well, I think we both found the answer because brother did this on the first try. Who was this guy? The redemption arc is insane. Lastly, we end Act 1 with Tighnari's first damage high in this run of 513. It's rough out here for him. And it's not gonna get much better because once we start grinding to AR 25, we have to fight our boss who has Dendro resistance. Level 40 character and level 40 Favonius Warbow vines are hitting for less than what he did at the start of the game. So when it comes to this boss, we are basically fighting ourselves. The beloved king of fungi also shoots branches out at us. Now, if these two branches were to clash, his would definitely win because ours are hopeless against them. And even if we try to give our vines a boost with the ult, we're still struggling. His branches deal more damage while ours are more accurate. But since mine hit for less than our level 1 charge shots, that's just what this battle turned into while I was talking about bad movies with my friends. Like, he gets told some bad news, he's just hovering over a sink and he's just like he makes some weird ass noise.
Oh, I've seen that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
After making some chicken for this man, we hit AR-25 and ascended both Tighnari and our Favonius warbow. It's okay, Sharpshooter's Oath. You can rest now. I figured the warbow was the better move for us since we can get our burst more often with it. I viewed it like this. Would I rather have one singular brick or 30 small rocks to throw at an enemy? The warbow also won me over because of its ascensions. They are basically free for us because the game gives us the materials for leveling it up. We then went inside the ascension domain, shot a tree at the Biggie Churl, and began the second act of Leeway. The cooking pot is first on the menu, and sadly, no amount of leaves, grass, or trees thrown at this thing will ramp up the heat. So we had to call on some help from the previous Guardian to do this. Inside the teapot, we shot a spider with a bow and arrow. Believe it or not, that's not even the weirdest way I've seen a spider get killed. Then we have to fend off against slimes. We actually got swarmed here. This was a bit too much for our 1v1 machine.
She's a fucking...
It was just one thing after another here with Tighnari.
One thing after another.
Did we just have a moment? Zhongli then makes us fight his own battle like, okay man, I didn't have a problem with them. And look, they almost killed me. And our branches keep hitting the fucking buildings. Now we gotta eat food. With our new figure, we finished Act 2 and started working towards the next quest. Glassy sky above, as long as I am wheeled you. I don't know the words. I just think it's a pretty song. Act 3 of Leeway starts close to the 13-hour point. The Anemo device blocked our path, but I still tried to find a new way around this. Looks like an invisible pathway is showing up. I might have been on that Tighnari skill when recording this. I have no idea what past me is on half the time when I look back at these. And since I already brought him out to help with this device, I forgot to take him out for the next part, but then figured, you know what? Why don't we just let Pain stay on the team for intimidation's sake? It's like how Ares goes into battle with his two sons, Phobos and Deimos. Fuck that. Greg Heffley goes into war with Pain on his side. And their next stop on tour is the Whopper Flowers that paid for these tickets. These flowers are actually problematic for Tighnari, not because he's a flower doctor, but because they actually do a lot of damage. So in order to beat them, it looks like we're gonna have to quite literally nip that butt off.
Let's nip that in the butt.
The beginning of the end for Act 3 is the child fight, and finally, another 1v1. That's what we were waiting for. This is the damage I'm talking about. You see that? What animal is he again? LeBron.
Whether you like him or don't like him, there's nothing you can do about him because he's #1.
And we got a damage high of 942, which still isn't great, but we made it. Look at all these numbers. Maybe all we needed was Pain on our side. To finish this quest, we have Osile, and at this point in our run, Tighnari is still trying to work on his Jade Plume Terror Shroom cosplay, but he's missing the damage portion of that. So it took the combined efforts of these three to help him achieve his dream, ending Leeway at 13 hours and 40 minutes. With Leeway finally done, I felt that it was the right time for Pain to leave us. But that bastard fucking swapped sides.
I might swerve in that corner, whoa, whoa. It's short on tight cause I'm tweaking it, bitch, don't let it shit go.
Dainsliff Act 1 was when the betrayal started. We entered the domain and had to fight a Hydro Abyss Mage, then a Pyro one. You son of a bitch. But the heel turn was finally completed when we started Act 2. To begin our pain, Tighnari died to a bubble from literally nowhere. I'm slowing this down. Please tell me I'm not crazy and that there was, in fact, not another bubble dropping down. I'm not being gaslit. There's not. What? Then we have to fight a Hydro Herald without the shield.
That's okay. You can keep it.
Which takes away the whole fun of this fight because I can destroy that thing in like 15 seconds. Are you serious? And speaking of shields, this is where we get to the next level of suffering. In the past, this quest was filled to the brim with Hydro Abyss Mages. Seriously, this was their favorite enemy in the game. But now, there's only one of them in this quest. They all got replaced with Cryo Abyss Mages who all have shields that Tighnari can't do shit to. All these changes just so Mona could stand a chance, but Tighnari still sweeps here. Kali had a better time than Tighnari here because of these shield changes. Being a parent means suffering the hardships so that your kid doesn't have to. And believe it or not, the one time we could have fought a Hydro Abyss Mage here, the fight ended before we even had the chance to. For the Jade Chamber quest, we've moved on from Pain, and now we're using our rental Shinhe to accompany us into battle. Sure wish you could have done something here. Shinhe didn't seem to bring us too much fortune in this area because, I mean, just look at these shots missing. And no, these misses are not because of my accuracy. It is always the game's fault. I am never wrong. It says that in my YouTube bio. Once we made it to the bottom of this domain, we were reunited with the Ruin Guard. It's been thriving since we last met them, so let's go ahead and ruin their fun.
Don't call me. Don't come by my house. We're done.
Ending this quest, we have Based, who is actually the perfect opponent for Tighnari. Even though they have 3 heads, that seems like it could mess up the targeting for our vines, but no. Similarly to me, their heads are just so massive that they take up enough space for when the vines curve upwards, it still hits them. Now that we've hit AR30, we can ascend both Tighnari and his weapon, then begin Inazuma. Inazuma is when the game starts to become much more inconvenient for us. Our vines kept getting blocked, from the walls to even the cargo that we have to protect. What's next? Is the air gonna stop us? No fucking way. Before starting Inazuma's finale, we have the archery demonstration. This requires us to be fast, because if our shots hit level 3, you best believe that one of those vines is headed right towards a red target. Beginning Act 3, we have the Electro Pillars, and these are sadly beyond Tighnari's capabilities.
Number 1, don't be good at something you don't want to do.
Guys! Give me that! I'll do it myself.
So we had to bring out Fischl, and since we were already in the party menu, I figured, let's go ahead and bring back Pain. Pain remains to be useful to us since Tighnari was able to storm up a new damage high of 1703. The Delusion Factory comes next, and boy, I wish it didn't. The Fatui shields here all resist Dendro because, of course they do. So it's just Tighnari and his logs. I desperately tried to reset the enemies here so I could damage their health more before they put the shield up, but no, they followed me. Our best option in this domain was the taunt, which did prove to be very useful. So many times in this did the Animo Boxer run over to punch nothing, an Electro Witch just stood there levitating, and Pyro Snipers literally shooting at their imagination. I gotta try this skill at some point. Like, unironically, I need to experience this type of feeling. This has to be life-changing. And now we've reached the next major boss in this run.
What? But this is boys wrestling. Ever hear of Title 9?
Because of my arch rival Title 9, we have to fight both Senora and the Shogun. Okay, but where are the men at?
Men have had a very rough go of it for just recently.
Senora's boss fight was just corner simulator because I had no reason to be anywhere else. And the invisible walls here thankfully did not interfere, unlike that random soldier in Act 2. After Senora, we then had to fight
The almighty Raiden Shogun and the Muso no Hitotachi.
The Shogun was immune to the effects of our skills, so clearly she practices the straight edge lifestyle. Alright then, loser, get a load of this. Bam! Damage high of 3.2k. Let him have this. Act 3 of Inazuma ends at the 20-hour point, and shortly after, we start Act 4. I know Kale's ass is mad as hell that we don't have to do this bullshit for the quest anymore. Abyss shields are basically the complete opposite of Fatui shields. Look at how fast we are shredding them. Ignore the Cryo and Pyro ones. Did you see that Electro one right there? Who else is gonna nip a bud like that other than Tighnari? Be for real. And also, before we end this act, here, I'm gonna show you something cool. Try showing this to like a medieval peasant or a boomer. I bet you'd get the same reaction. Aloy Safety Gel. Safety Gel. 22 hours into this run, we hit AR35 and made some more crystals to ascend both Tighnari and the Favonius Warbow. This gave us a new passive that greatly benefits Tighnari late game, but right now it's like an extra 6 damage. I will admit earlier that we did get a Strangulus, which could really help Tighnari here, but it has Ascension materials that we don't have access to. Sumeru Act 1 is the first act that actually includes Tighnari, and since we're a forest ranger, let's go ahead and range the shit out of this forest. First up is the Withering Zone, where Pain takes a back seat for us because his ass switched up on us again. Then we fight off some more enemies inside the tree, and yet again we battle a Hydro Abyss Herald without being able to destroy its shield. Why? I want these shields. It's so satisfying.
Damn you! You think you can just back out because you're scared?
That's it for Gandharvaville. So see you again in Act 5, Tighnari. Wait, why are you here? That wasn't my best work, I'll be the first one to tell you that. Hey, future me here. So originally Act 3 was just going to be that joke, but I completely forgot that Tighnari does actually show up here in this quest for like 2 minutes. So it really didn't even work, I'm sorry. Act 4 Sumeru starts out pretty morbidly as we see Tighnari hold a literal child hostage. Yeah, that's right, keep walking. Keep walking. Unless he's taken that kid to the mines, I really don't see why this is necessary. We were then able to activate the Dendro Pillars because you'll never believe why. But sadly, this also begins our Vine's slow descent into Tickle Monster territory. Oh no, please don't make me look. It's getting weaker. Afterwards, I tried to cheer up Tighnari by letting him walk next to Cyno, but he just keeps speeding away from us. Slow down. Inside the pyramid is when we see more groups of enemies appear, so of course that means our effectiveness is decreasing. This run is basically the complete opposite of Venti only. Even with our taunt, Tighnari is still just getting overwhelmed. Look at this poor man go through 3 voice lines just to throw his skill out.
And Shroud. One thing at a time.
Please stop interrupting me. The thing is, I would have never done this to somebody that I love. When I got down on one knee, again, I got interrupted.
Act 5 was a miserable experience for the most part, and I could tell Tighnari was not looking forward to it because brother spent the whole night levitating in the air. As for the combat, this is where the misery starts. Like I mentioned in the Delusion Factory, we don't do any damage to these Fatui shields. The enemy we do best against are the Pyro Snipers because burn makes them do a percentage of their health as damage. For all of the enemies we faced, no one's shield got even close to being done by the time we killed them. The factory was an even worse experience for Tighnari because now we're indoors, so these branches just keep flying everywhere except for where they need to be. It's so frustrating knowing that I'm actually losing out on most of my damage just because bro is under a pipe. And it's even worse against this Cryo Witch. We have to kill the bats in order to get to the shield, but she's camping by a wall, so our vines just don't work. And at this point, you could just say to aim better at the flies, which is a fair argument, but you try shooting them on mobile. Okay, I'm not on mobile. I just think it's funny because I know that's gotta be held. Now we've got Scaramouche, and hey, I can relate to the feeling of being betrayed. Pain has caused us more harm than good. But even though we can sympathize with them, we still have to fight. Tighnari is able to break the turrets, and now we have Scaramouche in the literal perfect position for Tighnari. Let me break it down here. This is a 1v1. We have an open area, and he has a huge hitbox. This is everything Tighnari could ask for. All right, bro, you gotta pack it up. Let's go to Act 6. And he can't even make a fire. How are you a forest ranger and you can't make a fire? Smokey Bear head ass. He might just be losing custody soon. And oh, would you look at that? We're in Fontaine. So Tighnari's really gonna have to prove himself to the courts here. Can he be worthy enough to raise Kale? He didn't struggle teleporting with the Hydrogonus for the flowers, and his damage is just okay. I think those are the requirements for kids these days. It's one of those things where it's like, it doesn't feel like I'm doing damage, but if you look at it, it's okay. Like here, we're hitting for about 2.6k on our aimed shots, but I don't feel like I'm hitting for 2,600 damage, if that makes any sense. That could just be me never evolving past the theory of conservation stage. I don't know. Hell, the largest damage number we got in this run was complete luck. We got a bloom drop from this Hydro Rogue, and it killed the animal one by 3.4k. That's more than the damage we did to the Shogun. I know this character is just small numbers, but in large quantities, it's just funny to me. We big numbers in this bitch. Take your small numbers ass back to Sumeru. We also met up with the Ruin Guard again, who seems to have pitied us, so there's a chance that our friendship can be rekindled.
You want to come over after school and play?
It's time for bedtime story, which is pretty fitting because I'm writing this at 11 p.m. and I'm about to go to sleep after typing the sentence. We start this quest going back to Abyss shields. Finally, I'm sick of those Fatui shields.
Let's go! I'm sick of her ass. I'm sick of that shit.
But these are all shields Tighnari can't do shit to. Okay, I'm complaining about these shields, but honestly, it could be a lot worse. Dendro does like 1 damage to them, but Tighnari applies it so often that it's not dog shit, but it's piss, if that makes sense. Like, it's almost bad. So if these shields have like 200 health, we're not doing 1 damage to them, we're doing like 7 a shot. And just in case you forgot, 7 is larger than 1. Remember, these videos are educational first. Fontaine Act 6 ends, and so Natlan begins. You know, this screenshot becomes a lot more ominous if you think of it as a Aether being pain. This symbolizes how Fontaine will truly never recover from their past. English teachers are probably happy about that analysis, and I just pulled that shit out of my ass. Natlan's heard about the troubles that our goat has been through, so they took him to the beach to see if he's truly washed. And he's still fighting, but he's barely holding on. It took everything just to bring the Saurian down by 1/3 of its HP. But when it comes to the Abyssal Pylons, this should be the thing that Tighnari is best at, since he just pumps out so much elemental damage. Breaking these should not be a problem. Our vines go too far up. Why? I was hoping it would be similar to Beish, where the hitbox is just so big that it can catch the branches, but no. They go straight for the Saurians. Eat a burger, please. Inside the skill becomes much more prominent. Since we aren't one-shotting enemies anymore, our taunt has more time to distract enemies. And because the cooldown isn't too bad when you consider its duration, Tighnari is relatively safe for most of this area. Except for the moves that are like half the size of Canada.
I'll bury you!
I would love to see him try to do that, honestly. The second act ends with some real shit because the ghost tries to sneak up on Tighnari, but they did not know that.
I hear everything.
So they could not catch him by surprise.
I hear everything.
That was hard as fuck, Tighnari, I'm not gonna lie. Prior to the war, we have to fend off against Fatui shields. Never get too happy in life.
If you expect disappointment, then you can never really get disappointed.
Inside the cave, I had probably the smartest play I've ever made, like in any of my challenges. I intentionally brought the Fatui agent and Crowd Gunner next to each other, then waited for the agent to use all of his moves. Because once he does like 3 or 4 attacks, he sets up his shadow clones and does a big fiery explosion, which can burn the grass and destroy the Crowd Gunner shield. This was one of the best plays I made in this entire run, and it was a complete accident. I just threw out the grenade and the agent went crazy, destroying the shield. I'll take it. 40 hours into this run, and that's the first time I've seen one of these Fatui agents get stunned. Now we've reached the climax, the war. How well does our favorite wimpy kid do on the front lines? Pretty well, actually. It started out rough for him in a couple of areas since we had to deal with the pylons. Our burst would just completely miss, and for even one of the fights, I let the team down because I was focusing on killing one of the 2 mages that Tighnari is actually capable of dealing with and completely forgot to help with the pylon. So we were quite literally contributing nothing to the team by killing an enemy that would constantly respawn.
Where are you going? The reenactment! We won!
But when the Abyss turns into Timmy Tough Knuckles is where Tighnari really shines. Despite being against a guy who likes to punch metal,
For fun.
Tighnari excelled in this area. The mimics are literally what the pylons should have been for us. Our branches target them and our burst auto locks. This is what we need. Finally, more selective evidence that helps with my goat agenda. Our burst still can't hit the pylon, but who cares? Nobody else is taking out mimics like this. You see that? This is why he's my goat standard banner. You think anybody else needed 2011 other people to die for this? Nah. And after 49 hours, 9 minutes, and 2 seconds, we beat Genshin Impact only using Tighnari. This was the standard banner I was most looking forward to, and sadly, it was a little disappointing, just a little. This game is very much based around elemental reactions, and Dendro is one of those elements that is pretty helpless if it does not have any sports. If he was literally any other element, he probably would have shaved off like a couple hours in total. But I still love this character, and I was very surprised with how useful his taunt was for this run, and we'll talk more about that when we get to the ratings. For damage, this character gets a 3. I was very torn between giving him either a 2 or a 3 because this character can do good damage. It's just a lot of small numbers added together. I mean, our charge shots were technically hitting for like 3k towards the end, which isn't bad, especially since we get 3 of them pretty much instantly. But this character kind of struggles in situations with multiple enemies. The vines constantly fly out to enemies you don't want to hit at that moment, and the skill is pretty weak. The burst can be good, but again, you're having to rely on auto-targeting for good results. If he wasn't so reliant on the branches, I think he could have been higher. Exploration, I'll go with a 3. Tighnari has the literal exact same situation Kale has for this. Dendro sucks in the open world, but he has a bow so he can do certain challenges. And because he's a male and I'm a raging misogynist, I'll give him a point over her.
Male and proud.
Male and proud.
It's actually because he's just slightly faster, okay? That's the only reason. Sustain. I'm actually gonna go with a 3. Tighnari can't heal himself, but this taunt is actually pretty cracked. Only certain moves don't work like this, and bosses are immune to the taunt. But for the most part, I did not have to eat that much food for this run, so I think a 3 is pretty fair for him. Bosses, I think I'll go with a 3. He has good single target damage, but like I said, he has the Dendro problem, so most of the time, it's just green physical damage. Nothing special about it. Aside from Scar and Dvalin, for the most part, Tighnari had decent damage output for the bosses. And finally, ability/utility, and I will go with the 4. Taunt, bow character, and a pretty solid ultimate. The only problem with this character are the Vine's accuracy and Dendro. If they were more consistent, this character would slap really hard solo-wise, but it's not, so I can't go higher. Overall, Tighnari gets a 16 out of 25, giving him a C. Ending with a damage high of 3.4k, but if you don't include the bloom, then it's around like the 1.9 to 2k area. As for buff damage high, it's also 3k from our grenade in the Shogun fight. Tighnari ends his challenge with the second fastest time out of all the standard banner 5 stars, just a little bit behind the level 40 Kaching. But I did really enjoy this character. However, for the next standard banner 5 star, I'm pretty sure that I will definitely be needing some therapy.
Tell me why.